Hi, I'm Kim Meinert, and I'm here with Marc Trost. Marc is the founder of Marc Trost Financial and the brand new podcast, Smart Money Moves with Marc. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kim. It's great to be here. Finally get this kicked off.
This is great. So we have a lot to learn about you just starting out. And one of the things I'd like to know is what drove your interest in financial services in the very beginning?
Well, so I got my start in the financial services industry pretty much, I've been in it over 30 years. So I started back in 1989 at a small bank, helping clients, helping customers, figuring out what they were going to do. Moving on through the industry, I've done a lot of different aspects within the industry itself, from front end, back end, servicing and such with clients. And then I moved into the financial services industry, insurance, financial planning, that sort of thing, back in the late 90s with a little company called New York Life.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And what ended up happening there was my dad came to me at that point and he was trying to get a long-term care policy for my mother, but she was already sick. And then at that point, that showed me, the value of what it is that I can do for my clients. Unfortunately, I couldn't do anything for my mother at that point. Fortunately, my father was very financially savvy and had quite a significant amount of savings, but it drained him. It hurt financially. And when my mother passed away a few years later, there was a lot of cleaning up to do. And I'm sure we'll get into some of that later on. But going through that and seeing also not just that, but how many of my other clients have come forward and things that we've been able to do, and some that would happily take the advice and the help, and some that would turn it down to their detriment. That happens.
Right.
But that's where my basis is at this point, is making certain that we help the clientele earn their trust, show them what we can do for them and what it can be with our help and advice.
Right. And when you have your life experience to where you saw someone who, with some planning, would have been able to preserve more of his assets instead of having to spend them on long-term care, that drives you to help other people do that. And it is planning. And, as a person who's living, breathing, we kind of forget the fact that someday we may be sick and we may need help. So telling your story obviously can bring that to the forefront. And do you find that's helpful when you're talking with your clients?
Very much so. I find that we bring with me and my team that I have, we bring quite a bit of experience to the table, and we can help them oftentimes in many ways that they didn't expect or anticipate.
That's fantastic. Can you tell me a little bit about your team?
So we have Bryce, who is really our estate planning guy. He helps with not just trusts and getting that figured out, but he also helps out with a very unique tool that we have available just to our team in the area, and no one else is allowed to offer it, fortunately. It's called the Deferred Sales Trust, and I'm sure we'll cover some of that later on. We have Gabe, who is our investment manager and specialist. And then we have Marc, another Marc, who is he's our planning wizard. He builds the financial plans for us.
Fantastic. And then what is your role in this team effort?
So in addition to being the lead and the face of all of that, the guy that is front and center, I build out the client trust, help them with figuring out what it is that they need, where are we best going to position them, how can we direct them, what are their needs. Sometimes the clients themselves don't realize or understand what their actual needs are. So, somebody may think that, I need to do this with Social Security. Well, if you do this, you may have to do this, or you do this with taxes, or how does it impact your tax situation? Or maybe have you considered maybe how much money you want to leave behind to your children? So there's a lot of things that go into it. And oftentimes the clients walk into my office, they don't know what they don't know, and we go through the discovery process with them and help them figure out a lot of times what's going to work for them and what do they need, and then give them a lot to think about sometimes.
Yeah, I know that feeling of not really even knowing where to start. And fortunately, you can help them with that and direct them. And I I think you spend multiple meetings with people. You take your time getting to know them and finding out what their needs are.
That's correct. So we don't rush anything. I would rather sit down and have 2, 3 meetings with a client, understanding what their needs are. Oftentimes, we are to the point where we're making some sort of proposal by the third meeting. But I had one client that I actually met with him about a dozen times. He was a very nervous retiree,
Mm-hmm.
very, very nervous.
Okay.
He had made a lot of mistakes previously in his financial life, but it took that patience with him, making certain that he understood what we were doing and why
Mm-hmm.
before he felt comfortable in understanding. Also, he was an engineer, so he also needed to understand everything to a different degree.
Everything, yeah, at another level.
So yes, he found ways to break it, but nonetheless, it was very comfortable for him after a period of time. And yeah,
Yeah, I understand that personality type. Um, so my question next is, where do you meet with people? They come to your office. And I know that you started your company most recently right before COVID, which turned into a lot of Zoom meetings, from what I understand. But when you meet with people, what's the best way to get to know them? Do you like to meet in person, or are you comfortable using technology?
it really depends on what is comfortable with the client. So we have done Zoom meetings, we have done Google Meet meetings, we have done phone call meetings. My personal preference is obviously always going to be in person,
Hmm.
because then it just has that added level of personal touch. And not only can I sit down and understand and read the client's body language, but they can read mine as well. And they can look me square in the eye and, ask that question, instead of staring at a computer screen and hoping that I understand it. Body language for me is says a lot about what happens. Did I ask the wrong question or did I ask the right question? Did I, do I need to follow up on that? So in person for me is better, but I'm happy to do whatever makes the client comfortable because I do know that there are a lot of extenuating circumstances
Right.
nowadays.
And those nerves do play into the situation. And with your nervous client, um, they are nervous, they're anxious, and they're afraid, actually. And one of the biggest fears I hear that people have is running out of money. And
Yep.
people are living longer and they're like scared. So how do you help them feel more comfortable with what they have and their ability to make it to the end?
Well, to begin with, you need to understand what they have. And we go through that discovery process, and we got to oftentimes do what we refer to as find the money because sometimes they don't even remember where it is. It's an interesting process sometimes. Sometimes clients don't understand what they have or why they have it or what the reason they have that money for. So, yeah, it can be a very frightening experience for some clients. It can be very overwhelming because we do ask a lot of information. And some people are very comfortable in sharing that. Some people are not. With technology nowadays and the way that everything has gone, people are a little bit more aware of what is happening with, are you going to steal my ID? Are you going to do this? Are you going to sell my information? I'm going to get this. So, and that's one of the things that we go through in building that client trust and profile is we're not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, it ain't worth it.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that working at the bank back in 1989. When you're
Yeah.
counting, $3 million in cash, it ain't worth touching it and doing anything other than just counting it. So it's not worth it to me to do anything other than make certain that client is going to have enough money in retirement, make certain that we deploy those assets properly, make certain that maybe they do something different they want to leave behind for their kids. Maybe they want to, or they don't have any children. Maybe they want to make charitable contributions or like what my father did. He left a lot of money behind for me and my sister, but he still had a very soft spot for dogs. So the ASPCA got a lot of donations from my father, not just in the form of money, but blankets and towels and bedding and such that they could use for the dog. So there's a lot of things that we can do, and sometimes clients just don't understand what they're doing, and we try to help take some of that pressure off of them and help them feel a little bit more at ease, knowing that they're going to get the help that they want and need and deserve.
And the word that comes to my mind here is clarity. You know, if you can bring
Yes.
clarity to their situation, if they don't even know where it is, and you're able to find it and make it clear what they do have, then they can have the confidence knowing that at least I know where I stand right now.
Yes.
And then you can help me prepare better for the future.
Well, then they can just simply make an educated decision. And we provide them with the ability to make that decision on their own. Okay, this is what I have. This is what I need. This is what why do I have this? Let's bring this all together. And then you decide at that point. We don't do high pressure sales. We don't do putting a lot of pressure on the client to engage us, to do anything. Our job is simply, the way that I see it, is to bring the client in, develop that rapport, develop that trust, help them understand that we're there to help, not hinder or hurt. And we want them to be able to come to a decision properly and correctly and be educated on what do they have, how can they best make it work for themselves, and, do they need our help? I will tell a client point blank, you will be just fine whether you do it with or without me. If you do it with me, I can make it better, and here's how I would do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't need our help, you're going to be just fine, but here's the consequences or the situation where it will be if you don't. So we've had that happen.
One of the things people deal with when they approach their finances and financial advisors is the fear that there are going to be hidden fees. And from what I understand, you don't have that situation going on. You're comfortable being very transparent with your clients.
I hate fees. I despise fees in a very strong manner. They are necessary, though. But the one thing that I don't do is charge an upfront fee for our time. There are a lot of advisors out there, and that's their business model. That's fine. That's how they have chosen to operate their business, and to each their own. Mine, I view it simply as double dipping.
Mm-hmm.
So I would rather do the work for the client up front and earn their business than make them feel like they're obligated to me because they stroked me a check for whatever number of dollars and cents, and now they feel like they have to get something for that money that they invested.
Mm-hmm. And then what about the hidden fees behind the products that you sell?
Well, we don't have hidden fees in any products. So there are commission-based products, and then there are fee-based products. And the commission-based products are going to typically be your insurance-type assets. And then the fee-based are going to be what's being placed into the market. And that's done through Gabe, and he's very upfront with what he's going to charge to the client and how we charge and on what scale do we charge the clients for managing that money for them.
Mm-hmm.
So we do not do hidden fees. We don't do anything. We don't play any games like that. It's not worth it.
Well, thank you so much for introducing yourself and your practice and for launching your podcast, Money Moves with Marc. And just so people know where they can get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
So if they want to reach me, they can go to our website, www.marctrostfinancial.com, or they can email us directly at marc@marctrostfinancial.com.
Okay, and I'd like to just point out that's Marc with a C, MarcTrost financial.com.
Correct.
And that link will be in the show notes below so people can reach out to you and get some clarity on where they are financially.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.